Welcome back to Daytime Ottawa. My next guest has created just a very incredibly unique podcast. I think if I remember my numbers correctly, it's about 104 episodes in now. And here to talk more about the Conscient podcast, I'm joined by its producer, Claude Schryer. Claude, welcome to the show. Great to have you here.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
I love the toque, by the way. Looking good. Well, I mean, with the weather today, but this is kind of the signature thing for you, right? We were just talking about that. It's part of a comfort thing for you.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the inspiration behind this, because I said it is very unique within itself.
It's about art and the ecological crisis, and it's my personal learning journey. So a way for me to share what I've learned and to talk to other artists about the ecological crisis, the climate emergency, but to do it through sound and music and creativity and, to explore how the arts can address some of the complex issues.
Do you have a background in this, Claude, that brought you to, wanting to learn more and give a better understanding to other people?
Well, I'm an artist by training, a composer. I worked at the Canada Council here in Ottawa for many years. And I guess I'm an expert in environmental issues through art. I've always been interested in that, and so now that I'm retired,
nice.
I have
Congrats.
a bit more time, and I also have a commitment to future generations to do everything possible, and what I do is sound, so I do a podcast.
So what role then can art play in as far as raising awareness to ecological crisis, to climate change?
There are many, many different ways. Art can move you emotionally. It can get you to understand an issue from a different point of view, complementing what science will tell us. There's so many ways that the arts can inform us on what we're living, what we're feeling, and what we must do to change and protect our environment.
104 episodes in now. What have you learned, and what have you even unlearned throughout all this journey?
Well, there's so much to be learned. I've learned from other artists on how the arts play that role we just talked about, and the season I'm doing right now is called Sounding Modernity, and so I'm exploring what modernity sounds like, what our modern world sounds like, and how we, through listening, can become better in touch with the issues that we have, and then through a lot of listening, become more active and engaged in change.
So, Claude, when you say those sounds of sort of modern life, what do you mean by that? What sounds are? Because I mean, I have some sounds that come to mind. What have you found?
Well, for instance, episode 104, which I encourage people to listen to any of them, but now I'm doing this series of 5-minute meditations. So 104 is about heat and energy, and we just put a heat pump in our home, and many people in Ottawa are doing this, and it's a good thing.
Right.
There's a sound to that. It's electricity, it's fluids moving. And so I did an episode about that, about the installation and the beauty of the sound, but also the implications of the energy that's being used. So I want people to be aware of what's around them through listening, and then every week is going to be a different issue. Sometimes complex issues, sometimes more celebratory, but every week exploring something that I am curious and passionate about.
Right.
And I think and then I invite people also to respond and to reply and to communicate with me, because I want to have that kind of interaction.
Okay, well, let's talk about that then. What kind of responses have you been getting?
Well, mostly my friends so far, but I invite the general public. But people express how they feel after an episode. So, for instance, there's an episode with a lot of silence, with a rope going, that kind of thing. And people get different. They get dreamy. They get sad. They get, they start hearing the sounds around because there's so much silence. So all kinds of different interesting, poetic responses that I'm receiving and appreciating.
Claude, what fascinated you so much about sound? Because I don't think, you brought up a great point. I don't think a lot of us take time to just listen. I tend to do it, where I go to kind of my sanctuary, which is my cottage, and I go and I just, I'm quiet and I listen to the sounds of nature. But within even a city, maybe I should be doing more listening. What stood out to you about sound in particular?
Well, I studied the field of acoustic ecology here in Canada. There's a lot of, Murray Schafer is a well-known composer who helped develop that field. Okay. So the idea is to pay attention to all of the sounds around us. So not just the pretty ones, but also the ones that are problematic. And that awareness leads us to not only appreciate them, but maybe design the sounds around us to change the sounds. So it's really about awareness and also appreciation. including the disappearing sounds, which is an issue.
Okay, well, now I'm intrigued. What do you mean? What do you mean by that?
Well, because of the ecological crisis, there's a lot of deforestation. There's a lot of changes to our environments, and the sounds are also disappearing. And we need to preserve natural spaces and spaces for sounds to continue to evolve.
That's interesting. So the disappearance is concerning. Is there a sound that comes to mind if I ask you what's one of the most concerning sounds you would?
Well, frogs are a good example because we have fewer and fewer frogs in our natural environment, and therefore there's less of those sounds, and people will notice that. People will feel it also. They'll say, seems that my environment has changed. Well, it is changing, and often for the worse, not always. And so it's that awareness and caring about the environment. And in my case, because I'm a sound artist, I do it through sound, and I try to bring people sound experiences through the podcast and give them the opportunity to make their own sounds and to increase their ability to listen critically and with pleasure.
Yeah, and what's fascinating during the pandemic is, for instance, the sound of planes left the sky. Yes. And I found that so incredibly calming. And when they came back, boy, did I notice it. Because I didn't really notice it before, but now that they're back, I notice it almost to the extreme. Where can people find the podcast very quickly?
Conscient.ca, everything is there.
Excellent. Claude, real pleasure talking to you. I wish we had more time. This has been a great conversation. Thanks so much. Thanks so much. Well, don't go anywhere because we'll be back in just a moment, and I'll remind you of some of the topics we talked about today.